even from the non-professional staff, i.e. the outsourced staff, they are very, very important. So for us to make sure that this plan succeed, all and sundry must be carried alone. One, you need adequate staff. You need qualitative staff that can drive this plan. Number two, you need the infrastructure that this plan must be carried out. Number three, we need the complementary staff that will keep the environment good for these plans to be carried out. When I talk about this staff, you need a clean environment, you need a very serene environment, and you need a very safe environment. And I think these are one of the things that we should embark upon. That means we carry every person who is a stakeholder in this institute along. Nobody will be left behind. And before then, we will make sure that everybody is fully conversant with all the plans and the strategies put in place. One thing, you cannot carry out a plan that you're not fully aware of or you're not fully educated about. So that is one on that our plan. And number two, we will now look at the possibly create a implementation teams that will be assigned specific functions and activities and with timeline. Create teams specifically with timelines so that every aspect of the strategy or the plan should be pursued vigorously and produce results. And the next one is to assign specific assignments, if possible, to individual staff in the institute who can be responsible in monitoring and seeing that a particular task is being pursued rigorously and with success. And I think with such, we will move forward. And this may go along with the monitoring teams. You see, when you have a process that you have put in place and there's no monitoring devices, definitely it may be possible that it may derail. It may go on a very wrong direction. But by the time you have a monitoring team with specific directives and with specific guidelines, these monitoring teams will be on the ground to make sure that all what is specified to be done at a particular period of time, it is done and will be done with precision and success. And the next one is that it is important to, when you're running, you must definitely review the process, the way you are running. If you see people running for a race, you always believe that you will focus straight to where you're running, and but at the same time you'll be looking back to see who is coming closer to you. So that I think this will give you a guide either to increase your speed or to do otherwise. So we are going to make sure that we will now put in place a report, progressive reports that will make sure that people are focused, people are empowered, people are directed to move in a specific direction so that they will achieve results for the institute. And in the course of that, we should also, after that, you must go for evaluation, you must assess, with a particular period of time. If it is a working plan, is meant for the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, or 1 year, 2 years. Definitely, you need to have what we call review to see what are the deficiencies, what are the problems, what are the areas that you need to improve, what are the things that you're supposed to change, what are the things that you have done and you have not done, so that those things can be put in place and make sure that you produce results. So on this note, and we said actually we have already produced teams. We have already created teams that who will be awaiting to make sure that they give direction how the implementation of the plan should go. And so we look at our weaknesses. What are our strengths? What are the weaknesses? So that we pick issues that we cannot digest, look at the solutions, and then we move forward. And that will go simultaneously with the remedial process. When you identify your problems, definitely we say half of that problem is solved. What are the remedies? What are the solutions? What are the best ways? What are the best practice? What are the new directions? What are the new areas you would like to employ or to use to produce the result that you need? So the implementation of this process, as we say to you, cannot be go away from stakeholders. The stakeholders who are like you people who are today with us, we cannot leave you behind, we cannot leave you aside. You will be part and parcel of the implementation stage, because your advice and your professional advice will mean a lot for us, so that we make sure that whatever we are doing, we can go along with all what we have achieved here, with all what we have planned together, and how the possibilities result of the life. And I think on that, this is just the brief of the plan that we're going to have. But I think from what you're going to say, what you're going to do, the input you're going to have from you, it will give us a room for us to increase and to advance on this, our plan for this issue of the implementation of our strategy. Thank you and God bless. The resources we are going to mobilize is not only but to mobilize areas that are open abroad, going to mobilize technical resources. That's why we putting one place, one goal, in order to ensure we don't have mistakes in our implementation. Because already we are confronted with bigger resources. So if we don't put one place, one goal, suffer some mistakes, which will not go well for the implementation plan. That is the area of technical mobilization. Like I said, we are spoken on human mobilization. Then resource mobilization. One, it is listening attentively to the representative of the honorable minister. He told us that if we wait for the annual budget, this dead on arrival, God forbid. What are we doing to ensure that this plan is not dead on arrival based on funding beyond the usual budgeting? You know, this is Nigeria, and we have done it before. If you hear what to collect as overhead at the moment, you'll be sorry for the case. But how have we been able to go, planning proper allocation of resources? This we intend to continue. And also, beside the budget issue, there are some areas we need to connect with people in finance, in budget. There are ways we have done it before, but if you don't ask, nobody will. So we will embark on lobbying those who are movers and shakers of finance of this country, so as to get some enhancement in our budget allocation. Besides that, if you look at our cost service charge at present is not based on commercial risk. If you look at what
for our courses, they are very, very good compared to what other consultants are charging. I don't pray that you go into this area by the time you use one or two packages, if it works, you may not need to go into that area. But if it doesn't work effectively, you will need to review our our because of our program. You have to review. We have here to some over-regulated. Owners, that is the employers, government, and the labor unions. Those are the people that owned this place. But the funding of this place at the moment, it rests mostly on government. Though I don't know the workings of employers, how they come about their budget. But if we are so constrained, we may have to approach them. If there is a way, they can have allocation for us in their budget. The same thing goes for the unions. Government is already doing its bid. Then we need, even among us here, there may be some of us who are so connected that they can link us to people that can actually facilitate, our getting enhanced funding. So we are already looking at that direction too. But above all, in our resource mobilization, we are going to stay within the confine of the law, so that at the end of the day, we are not charged for breaking the law. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. That's on resource mobilization and implementation strategy. I know there are contributions from the floor. So let's hear. We should finish in like 20 minutes time. So.
Okay, my contribution on the implementation. I think the strategic plan, it's an internal process in your processing, to guide your processing. And in the place of you asking stakeholders that they will be involved in implementation strategy, I question it. And secondly, the issue of having monitoring teams. I think your strategic plans came up from, or comes up from the departmental activities. And if that is which should be ordinarily, having a monitoring team to supervise me, I'm just taking myself into consideration. Research. And then a monitoring team now coming to oversee my activity. I see a conflict, coming up with this place. Rather, I think that the strategic plan will be broken down into each department or unit as we have it, wherein you give the mandates, because we all know where we are going to. We give the mandate to research department for us to actualize our dream in 2025 or 2026. These are the plans, these are the activities that you need to do. Fine. Then at the end of the year, whether quarterly or annual, each department or each unit brings up what are the things that you have itemized for that annual plan. What have you achieved? What are the things that distract you in achieving A, B, C, or D? At the end of the day, you evaluate and look at, fine, we can do this in year 2, we can do this in year 3. But having a monitoring team, I think it will be counterproductive. Thank you.
Also dovetailing to monitoring and evaluation. So I should say that I agree with you, and that's my view, that there are already statutory processes, and they can be at departmental level. You have audit systems, for instance. All of this are also part of the cycle. So it looks problematic, overloading, or building further bureaucracies, as it were. I think we can work with the number of control measures that we have already, monitoring all these processes and then evaluating without necessarily building structures that are counterproductive. No, departments, as it were, and units are specialized. Okay, I think they should be made to draw, at departmental levels, also their plans, operational plans that would evolve, okay, from the strategic plan, okay, and then establish clearly, processes of monitoring, which is more of a continuous basis, and then evaluation at, regular cycles. I think that might be a lot better if you ask me. Mr. Ekmanubi.
Thank you so much, sir. And I just want to look at 2 key thematic areas, and that has to do with human resource planning and budget planning. I want to take it from the human resource planning, although it's part of my submission, and that has to do with institutional capacity building. Because if you have a plan, who implement the plan? What is the capacity of the implementer of the plan? So it's very key. And so from that angle, I want the institute to look critically into issue of proper recruitment and proper placement of staff, so that for each department with the mandate to implement the strategic plan, you must have the right human resources to implement such a plan. And that is what I also put here as core values mainstreaming. The implementers of this plan must understand the core values of the institute. They must know because I think even from the point of recruitment, there must be a very extensive training for staff to understand the core values, because you can't implement something when you don't know the core values. And of course, that has been articulated in the strategic plan. You must know the vision of the institute, the mission of the institute. And so those are the things that must be clear. Because why we don't achieve much in Nigeria today is that we put the round hole in square peg. We must ensure that we attract the right individual, the right capacity to drive this process. And that is very key, so that at the end of the day, it will not just be an academic exercise. So the issue of budgeting, under HR2, for every recruitment process, each department also has a role to play, because you must have an audit of personnel to know whether a department is overstaffed or understaffed, the right people to be there. It's also very important, human resource audits, so that you'll be able to deploy the required and the appropriate human resources to drive this process. So under budget, yes, we might say resources are scarce, but the resources at our disposal, how do we utilize these resources? How do we prioritize our need to achieve minimum goals? Because in life, you can't even achieve the maximum. It's just like in economics that human needs insatiable. You cannot satisfy. So the little resources available, how do we deploy it to achieve the minimum goals? One, how do we do our budgeting? We must ensure that every department unit are critical partaker of budget planning, so that at every point of budget proposal, each unit department should submit, of course, their budget needs. Before we talk about the allocation, then we talk about monitoring and evaluation. Because I know there is a statutory budget committee that will also see to the oversight, the implementation of some of this budget process. I'm saying this because at times when people say trade unions, they use resources anyhow. My experience so far is that trade unions are so organized that you can't spend money anyhow. You are audited every year, and your audit report must be with the register of trade union every year. There are penalties for it. And I've discovered that to spend a dime in the trade union, it passes through a lot of processes, ancestral the constitution of each union. So it is important that there is an organized process to address some of these things, from the human resource planning to the budget planning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, comrade. You briefly highlighted this issue when we were in the canteen on this issue of personnel. Yes, I stand to concur with you that the basic problem we have, not only in Makelimodo, is in Nigeria, is the problem of recruitment. That is the basic point of entry. And you know, the system that operates within the system, especially in the federal civil services, either you advertise your recruitment exercise for people to contest from different parts of the country, or you go in the other way around, we call it a replacement, where you will be given a waiver. So what most of our people prepare to do is they always go for the waiver. And if you go for the waiver, that means the people you are going to bring in may not be necessarily the people that we need. And that is the big problem we are having. But you know, last year, from our human resources side, when we are submitting our manpower budget planning, what I did was to come up, first of all, with needs analysis. We stood from the department, we decided to look at all the departments, from all the complaints we received from the departments, what are the quality of personnel they need from their departments. And these are the lists we submit to the DG for approval. So if he approves, then our big problem now will come, which process are we going to take? Is it the other side or the other side? But if it's going to be the other side, see, that means we are going to give stringent measures to those who are going to supply this personnel. So, but what I agree with you is that definitely, even if we are going to the other way around of replacement, definitely people must be put into serious check. People must produce the kind of people we want. Even in the manpower planning and budgeting we are doing for this year, these are the things we are putting into place now, which we have not submitted yet to the head of service, which we are working on it seriously to make sure that we finish before next week and get it submitted to the head of service for approval. Now, if you have your needs analysis, that means which group of personnel do you want? What are the qualifications you need? I think it will give a very clear indication of the direction you want to go. And that is why this plan must need something like that. And we have already started working on it, Oga Martins. And by the grace of God, we are going to pass through that. This year, even if we are going to recruit, definitely that is the way we are going to go through. Because if we want this plan to succeed, definitely we are going to put the round peg in the round hole. Not any square peg taking round hole. Thank you very much.
Further to the question asked by Comrade Egbanobi, he asked question about resource allocation, that it is not enough to have resources, but what is more important is how the resources are allocated. If you will fall back to your experience, at least when you were here, you will notice that this, like I said the other time, this is a regulated service. You know, whatever you want to spend must comply with whatever you have in your budget. So you cannot afford frugality. You cannot afford not to spend money on what it is actually approved for. Because doing so, you will be running foul of the law. So in the area of resource mobilization, I want to tell you that those we have at the end of affairs of our resource allocation, they are professionals. And I'm quite sure they will do justice to whatever resources that is at our disposal. The question asked by the NECA man, though he did not specify to whom the question is directed, but I think it's more of a human resource than finance. When he was talking about monitoring, when I spoke about monitoring, what I meant then was that from the office of Accountant General, they will come, okay, it's all right. So thank you.
Thank you, our friend from NECA. The issue of monitoring, I think I've already noted that one very clearly. We will, you have now break it down. We know definitely in the civil service, the departments are very, very important. They were assigned with specific duties, and they are expected to carry out these duties. And at the same time, when this plan is ready, definitely these things are going to be implemented by the departments that are concerned. We, for example, in the human resources, which are maybe the supporting department, we make sure that we produce the right caliber of personnel needed, the right placement, because the placement is very important too. We make sure that these things are done well so that we will achieve the goal on the planning. Definitely, we will note that the monitoring will be strictly done under the departmental heads and then to ensure that compliance are being done. Thank you very much. Any other contribution, please? Any contribution?
Yes, once again, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I still have a different perspective from the NECA man on this issue of resource mobilization. And if you say somebody is a stakeholder, there are several elements. A stakeholder is somebody that should show interest in something, somebody who's ready to contribute, both in cash and in kind, to a certain cause. Yes, which now brings me to MINILS. You said it earlier, MINILS is a tripartite institution. NECA, for instance, have 2 representatives on our board. Over the years, those representatives have been coming. And you said something about the fact that government has been the only one doing everything. So what I just want to ask is, and I listened to his first presentation, and I did not hear anything about what NECA can contribute. We are a training institution. I was expecting to hear from him that, okay, in this issue of this your strategic plan, if there are some training programs on so areas, we'll be ready to send participants. I also listened to the people from the civil society, informal sector, the women. Nobody said anything about what they can bring to the table, not in terms of money, but in terms of how they can help MINILS achieve some of these goals. And one of the critical areas is participation. I expect that some of these are stakeholders. We say, okay, since this, if there's any training coming up, we want to participate, we want to collaborate. If there's any area of research, we promise you that we're interested in participating or collaborating. But that is something I didn't hear. And that is something that I feel would be very critical to this strategic plan from 2022 to 2026. Thank you.
Sorry, just an addendum to what he has said. I actually noted it, but it escaped my mind. Yes, the issue of stakeholders' participation is not only by, as government is subventing, giving subvention, then the stakeholders too will be giving subvention. I don't think that is clear in the mandate of the institute. But like I said, participation. Like my union now have resolved that averagely in a year, we train not less than 200 of my members in the institute. And we started it last year. We started 125 last year, and even in regular programs, some of them were sponsored to attend a regular program. I think we can have a very close relationship and collaboration with each trade union. We may not dwell so much on the labor center. It may not work, but each component, affiliate, let have that direct. So we can create a strategic unit for that interface with trade union. I want to give a specific example without indicting anybody. There was a program that took place in Abuja, and I was asking, the institute training program should be distributed in this place. If I have to call the DG and eventually send Ngozi, and I make sure that a space was created, my president is here, to make a statement for the institute. That's why you have all the affiliates of TUC present. I have to insist, and thank God for the magnanimity of the president of TUC, Comrade Kodolale, who said, okay, there must be a time dedicated for MINILS to address the organs meeting. Very strategic meeting. My president was at that in Abuja. So I think we must keep track on the activities of trade unions and make sure we attend. When I was there was a time we went for TUC delegate, I think 2009. This is corporate, you can bear me with. I drove from here. There was no vehicle. Mr. Danjuma, you know what happened? No vehicle in the institute. But I drove the institute representative to attend the National Delegate Conference of the TUs. We must be present at those activities of the unions and the civil society. So that is the only way we can get their involvement, commitment, and ownership of the process. Because as it is, they have alternative. In fact, some of them are more regular in Turin than MINILS. So why? We should ask ourselves, why go? So those are better. We can change the narrative. So that's why I made reference to Turin during my presentation, that let us also look at Turin programs and see how we can replicate and see how so that we can attract. Because what you told me 5 years ago, if you are repeating it this year, you will not see me next year. Because there is dynamism in the world of work. So things are changing. The former DG mentioned the future of work. Yes, everything is changing. In late 2019, we didn't know we have COVID. COVID came and has changed the narrative of work. The patterns, the work processes, everything has changed. So now, what will be the strategic plan of the Institute post-COVID? Because even that is the conversation globally. That's building a post-COVID era in the world of work. It was the theme of the last Global Labour University Conference held in Penn State University. Comrade Komolafe was a lead discussion there. So what I'm saying in essence is that we must keep track of the activities of this trade union. It's not just to say NSCTUC. No, the components, medical and health workers union alone can fund major activities of the union. They are in billions. So we must have a direct link with these people and let them know the products available at the institute that they can enjoy. And lastly, please, infrastructure is very important. I can support the strategic process. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Well, just by way of reinforcing what he said, and to also reiterate the fact that it's not all contribution that can come in terms of money. As a matter of fact, merely being able to come up with well-designed programs that meet the needs of specific sectors will go a long way to attract patronage, and not just in terms of people coming, because I represent the informal sector, and like I made very clear, very few of my people can actually afford to leave their work and come and pay for some programs here. But I also know that it's possible to actually collaborate with a whole lot of institutions internationally who, like you said, can actually help to design appropriate needs-tailored programs for the informal sector, and can also help in the area of funding to ensure informal sector participation. There are a whole lot of them out there, especially in some of the thematic areas I talked about, occupational health and safety, social protection, a whole lot of issues. Entrepreneurship training in the informal sector is not the kind of training you will give to people coming from the more formal, sectors that people need in the formal sector when you talk of entrepreneurship training, and so on and so forth. So there are, even in terms of institutional capacity building, the formal sector organizations are very weak. They tend to be very gerontocratic. They have a lot of backward characteristics because some of them derive from traditional ways of doing things and running organizations. We've collaborated in the past, for instance, on programs around building democratic workers' organizations in the informal sector. That's the kind of program I think that can be extremely relevant if run by the Institute, and there are organizations out there that could support it and that could also help to fund informal sector participation in those kind of programs. And I think as time goes on, we might also get to a point where we'll at least have some who will be able to even fund participation in those kind of programs. But I must emphasize the point that the enormous training and capacity gap in the informal sector is such that government must bear responsibility. If you are in the private sector, your employer fund a lot of your in-service training. So who does that for the informal sector? It's the government. And like I tried to point out before, we continue to ignore these people to our collective peril, because there are a whole lot of things that are happening, a whole lot of suffering, deprivation that are going on that are absolutely unnecessary if we have some of these structured interventions in place. So I just thought like that.
No, two things. I hope the patrols, you're working, you're on duty. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for the opportunity. I never wanted to speak before because I'm not an orator. But my comrade, I want to disagree with him, who spoke, is the one who wants me to speak now. In the sense that your sector can be involved. There's work environment, there's what we call social behavioral change communication, attitude. So the institute can design program for them. You know, we work together very well. So your people are dynamic people. They hold the economy of this country. I'm not flattering this. They hold the economy of this country. So the institute can work with you to design a program, attitude, their practice, behavioral change, hazards in the workplace. We can think outside the box and create it. Yes. Thank you.
So any other contribution, please, from the floor? Dr. Damade. You have to say something. Yeah, you want to make a comment?
Thank you very much. I think one thing that is very key here, concerning particularly our educational program, what I want to highlight, I've spoken about it privately with the education officer for NLC. In the times past, we used to admit people to do national diploma without having them go through JAM. But today processes have changed, and we need to let stakeholders know that yes, labor movement participation in our educational program is now through JAM. But I made it clear to him, yes, once we are able to get them do JAM, there could be waivers. JAM is not insisting that the cutoff mark must be as high as the rooftop. So because of the peculiarity of the group of workers, I mean, the segment, there can be waivers, consideration for reasonable cutoff mark that will allow them to be part of it. And I think for implementation of this strategy, much has been talked about the need for us to use virtual means to reach a wider audience. Employers won't have the resources to release their workers to come here and stay for long. The institute is building capacity for distance learning. So what I think we must do, we must look at what we have on ground and invest more in it. Capacity is very key. Capacity is not only human capacity. You talk, I think Mr. Olagunju mentioned technical capacity. Our capacity to provide infrastructures that we need to leverage on the opportunities that we have out there. We must look at them as part of our plans for implementation. Then very key, the concept of team and the use of team is very important, becoming widespread. But we have departments. I think what
we should encourage is a change in our cultures within the departments rather than insist on bureaucratic practices. Our cultures must embrace more of, dynamic leadership practices that will bring everybody that is in a department on board, get all the resources as we have them currently to be part of the implementations, the implementation processes for the strategic plans that we have. Then key, very key again, is, I think this has been talked about significantly, budgeting. Budgeting. Our annual budgets, we must make the processes much more robust and participatory. If we're able to do that, certainly we'll go far with these plans that we have. Thank you.
To round it up, before, yes, I want to talk about something internal to us. And this thing is key also in our areas of operation. Our output is very important, that we increase our output. And we can do this in several ways. We know about this. You see, to me, I think the more our output is, the more we churn out publications, the more we churn out research, the more, we do these things. This issue of visibility that we have and popularity will increase. More developmental partners, more people, when they see our output, they will want to associate with us. Trade unions that don't come here before, once they know that, yes, Michael Emodu, this is what they've done, this is their work, this is their research, they will be gravitating more towards us. A lot of these developmental partners will be the destination point when it comes to projects that have to do with labor, employment, and industrial relations. So internally, it is something that we must take very, 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 very seriously. And it's also linked to actualizing our strategic plan whenever we want to start it. Thank you.
I just want to appreciate MINILS for training one of my staff. Yes, he just finished the National Diploma Program, and I promised to send more. Sir, you mentioned lobbying. We should not shy away from it. It's very, very important. There's no name we can call it. Let's just call it lobbying. I visited one of the teaching hospitals, and the doctors and the administrators were fighting. What were they fighting for? The doctors said they are also administrators and want to benefit from ASCON training. Yes, ASCON had gone ahead to put some money in the hospital, in the hospital's budget for training in ASCON. I don't know whether you understand me. They are doing it. Maybe it's through the National Assembly, but it's serious high-level lobbying. So the money is for ASCON, but the money will not land in ASCON's account. It's in the budget of other MDAs. So I think it's what MINILS can also key into. Hello? Is it not part of budget? Hello?
It's a big sum of money.
Can't we key into it? That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy that this is coming. I am one of those who have spent 30 years in this institute. This is my 38th year of working in this institute as a university graduate. I have seen, this is from the first director. Yes, I don't look, yes, to the glory of God. The first director, I met him here, Alhaji Shokunbi, late, Alhaji now late, Alhaji Shokunbi. The second director was Mr. Jeminiwa. The third one was Dr. Lanrewaju, who he just left now. And then the last one, who almost grounded the institute, was Alhaji, Alhaji Ishak Alabi. I can tell you, I can write the history of each one of them. And I can tell you categorically speaking that East Institute was taken to the highest level that I have ever seen by Dr. Lanrewaju. Dr. Lanrewaju did his best for this institute, but with the cooperation of other directors. When you are talking about planning for an organization, nobody can do it better than from the internal. I have taught industrial relations for almost 30 years of my being here. The only people I have been taught that every organization has both internal and external customers. But if you don't satisfy the internal customer, the external customer can never be satisfied. It's not possible. It's not possible. So the work is on Comrade Issa Remu's hand. And I pray that with the support of the stakeholders, he will move the institute to the desired destination. Yes, he will move the institute to the desired destination. That's what I'm saying. That the internal people, those of us that work, when you leave now, the strategic plan will now be implemented by the internal people. Am I not right? Yes. So you have to motivate. I remember when Frederick Ebert Foundation, the director in 2002, visited the institute. In 2000, he visited the institute. When he came, he said he wanted to meet trainers first before anything. He said, no, what we are bringing here, those who will drive it, we have to make sure that there's nothing hidden in their heart. We have to make sure that there is no acrimony with what we are bringing. We have to make sure that they are well motivated, adequately prepared. If they are not, then our bringing the project here will be in futility because it will immediately hit the rock. Because those who drive it are not happy to drive it. How do you drive a vehicle when the person to drive it is crazy? You understand? So you have to make sure, and the stakeholders must join hands together to help the institute, to move the institute forward. I believe that we are going to achieve it. I believe that we are going to get there. I believe that it's going to be possible. But Lanrewaju did his best. Lanrewaju did his best. And we just pray that God will guide our leaders aright so that they will make the right decision at the right time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is the director of.
Can we get the? Are you ready, Dr. Trust?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to adopt the existing protocol. Why, on behalf of the repertoire team, we bring the communique issued at the end of a day validation workshop for MINILS Strategic Plan 2022 to 2026, organized by Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies in collaboration with the International Labour Organization on Wednesday, April 27, at Damachi Ukandi Training Hall, MINILS, Ilorin. Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies organized this validation training workshop in collaboration with HLO. The main purpose of the workshop was to review and validate the MINILS Strategic Plan 2022 to 2026 and to galvanize and reposition the institute globally. The objective of the workshop is as we have it in the program of the event. There are 5 technical sessions, observations. A lot of observations were raised, some of which include but not limited 2. It was observed that the proposed set of activities, tools adopted, and levels of consultation in producing the draft strategic plan is quite appropriate. The context of the draft document in relation to the Institute's vision, mission, and knowledge areas are highlighted in the draft are in harmony. The state of the facility in the Institute was described as a dilapidated one. Inadequate funding is also observed. So far, so good. Though this issue is not peculiar to Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies. So therefore, no one expects that the Institute should run in isolation of its challenges related to that. Recommendations. The following recommendations were put up as a result of the observations made. Number 1, there is a need for the condition of service of the Institute to be robust enough in no lesser capacity than what obtained in any Nigeria university, so as to increase or give the good and sustainable career path to the staff of the Institute that are expected to drive the plan. Recommendation in area of inadequate funding. Its grants and endowments could be accessed, fulfilling minimum requirements by the disbursement of funds by international organizations like Public Service International, among others. Programs and projects of the Institute should be developed along the interest areas of these international donors. 3, the library should be upgraded to meet the minimum standard that will support the plan, the strategic plan in terms of information and human resources, as well as technology support to service the information need of all stakeholders of the Institute. 4, constant mapping of stakeholders' need so as to develop well-tailored program modules for appropriate stakeholders. 5, new world of work, future of work, work of the future, climate change, gender mainstreaming, among others, should be keyed into by the Institute so as to attract patronage and international support, including funding. 6, diversification of funding is more imperative now than ever, since the budgetary allocation from government as the sole source of revenue of the Institute are judged to be outdated or due for review, enabling her is grossly insufficient to service the goals of the Institute. Labor movements are capable of funding sections of the programs and projects of the Institute, thereby enhancing the internally generated revenue base of the Institute. Channeling of the IGR to enhance the IGR base of the Institute. Since the strategic plan is expected to be driven by the employees of the Institute, their welfare, training, retraining, and capacity development is therefore of paramount importance, so as for them to better be keyed into the actualization of the strategic plan in view. Legislative and policy intervention locally, and as it has been described variously through lobby, as well as the power of the council, should be leveraged upon to give the Institute's facility, collaboration, and patronage a facelift. The changing government policy should also be considered when programs and projects of the Institute is being drawn up. The feedback mechanism is also mentioned to be developed and duly serviced. digital marketing and learning. That is, massive open online courses should also be adopted so as for the threat of the portfolio consultants that were described as encroaching into the mandate of the institute to be curtailed. The institute must also be visible as well as be popular in its programs and the marketing strategy. Also, infrastructural review for internally generated revenue. This explains that internally generated revenue could be enhanced if the facility in the institutes are competitive enough and found better than what obtainable elsewhere. The institute, it was also recommended that the institute needs to form alliance with social movement and civil society organizations who are judged to be one of the strategic partner in the project of the institute. Prioritization of work plan schedule. The high programs, projects, and global view, like decent work, social protections, among others, should reflect in the training modules of the institute so as to arrest the situation which makes the former customer of the institute to look elsewhere. It was also recommended that there is a need to create platform for stakeholders' engagement on topical labor issues through conference, workshop, summit, dialogue, among others. It was also recommended that diversification of program pattern to include the socially excluded work group, particularly in the informal sector, by organizing programs like occupational and health safety, basic management skill, simple accounting, social protection, cooperative society, among others. Effective follow-up and feedback mechanisms should be developed so as to build on the success story as well as to correct whatever the challenges associated with getting customer on board. The core value of the institute must also be entrenched in the institute and made popular among the employees who are expected to drive the strategic plan. It was also recommended that inclusive budgetary and recruitment system to give a sense of belonging to all employees, thereby getting the right people into the service through an open and democratic process that will give equal opportunity to prospective employee. Conclusion. In conclusion, the workshop presented an opportunity for relevant stakeholders to objectively contribute to the Institute's strategic plan, delivering actionable recommendations that will enhance the fulfillment of its strategic plan. The participants further expressed profound appreciation to the Institute and its partner, International Labour Organization, for organizing the validation workshop for MINILS, as they consider it very apt. The need for strategic plan to develop a robust collaborative institutional representation and to actualize the mandate of the Institute cannot be overemphasized, as it will help to address the current issues in the minds of employee, management, trade union, and other critical stakeholders of diverse demographical characteristics. Therefore, strategic planning remain most potent tool that engender trust-based collaborative relation in the emerging labor institute. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for a good job. I want to see, I'm not sure it captured strengthening internal human resource personnel and assuring internal harmony. You can frame it. I'm not sure it captures it. Then what is it again, sir? That is strengthening the internal workforce and making harmony reign within the management, the institute. So it's a starting point. You got the point? Yes. I'm not sure your core value or principle. Do you use lobby or advocacy? I'm just raising that. So the management know what is better. So whether you use lobby or advocacy. Then we talked about clean energy transition. So I specifically raised that. I can't see it because the institute should establish a framework to position Nigerian workers, both public and non-public sector, towards energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please, I will appreciate if you bring it to that, your work plan. I think after you said work plan, what follows did not really marry it well. Easy.
Thank you for that clarification.
And that's your work plan. It's a work plan annually, quarterly. I will appreciate if you put short term, medium term, and long term.
It's noted, sir.
And no, that is, they should just, yes, you can strengthen it.
I think the way it was captured was that the work plan supposed to follow the strategic plan, giving us details of how all of those things will be achieved, whether quarterly, bi-monthly, or biannually, towards achieving the set target of the strategic
And you did
plan.
mention of that effective follow-up. I think is that effective follow-up. Go up. Easy. Is that effective follow-up?
I think it's down somewhere here.
Easy.
That's you.
Effective follow-up and feedback mechanism. I think that one deals with evaluation, monitoring and evaluation.
Yes.
That is what you should just put, not just follow-up, but just try to monitoring and evaluation. Because if you monitor, that monitor gives room to evaluating the extent at which that very work itself had gotten to. You understand?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Sorry, as an addendum, there was a place you used the word MINILS institute's customer.
I use it in quote.
Because customers shouldn't be.
I'm talking about the.
Okay, it's not written as.
It's not written. I only use it to explain.
Right, I overheard customer, I think.
Thank you, sir.
So item E.
Yes. You did mention, but you didn't put it there. You said future of work and work of the future. Why didn't you put that there?
You know, we're just to get these available for us. We are still working. We still have to rework to flesh it up.
Okay.
Some of those points you see, we still have to flesh them up.
Okay. Now, most of the contributors did mention for us to have a touch of safety, security, health, and environment. They use different languages, but I didn't see any of it reflecting here. Well,
which is operational health safety.
when you say operational health, anyway, if that's the way
We
you
can
people call it.
still, we'll still work it out. Yeah. We will take all those corrections. We are taking.
Yes, I just want to remind the rapporteur group when the Dr. Larry
When you said SSH something.
the chairperson of the first session actually had a very detailed summary, captured a very detailed summary of what transpired during the session. And some of the things he mentioned are not here. So I would advise the rapporteur to get hold of the chairman, that the Dr. Larry Waju, and then maybe take the few pages or jotting that, even if you have to snap it with your phone, snap it and use it to update this, because there are some things missing here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma. Thank you very much. So are you raising up your hands? Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. We are done presenting, sir. Thank you, sir.
Minister is here.
Yes, sir. Okay. I just want to make an appeal that for me, I don't believe everything is about money, 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 money. And so MINILS should be rest assured that for some of us, if you call us for some details of what we gave you, please don't bother about money. We will be ready to offer you that service for free. I don't think everything you should think about money, you may not be calling us. That's number one. Number two, what we experienced today, for me, I may be wrong, but from my perspective, it's because when you were putting the documents together, some of us were not part of it. So it's like we drove you back. And so I don't know if it's not going to be too costly. Exactly. If it's not going to be too costly, honestly, we need to come for this exercise once again. Thank you.
So I thank you. I just wanted to say that, you know, every platform brings its own, comes with its peculiarity. We've had all sorts of processes that have been, that have been inclusive until now. So I guess that even if you appeared at the previous program, when you appear again, there's a tendency for you to have different ideas. I think that yes. So yeah, have you talked to him so that we need to close?
Don't completely dismissed so that sir, what we discussed here is that this program, I'm sure, was funded, externally funded, and I don't know, and it involves some financial costs. Reconvening, I don't know if they will have the financial capacity to reconvening another, but those of us that participated in the validation, when the documents are ready, they should share it to our mails, and then we'll react to it and send it back to them for a final compilation and cleanup. Thank you.
Yes, I want to say this is a very robust, rich engagement, and validation workshop or conferences are of this nature. So you don't, there's no need for reconvening. What Madam says, what will happen, and that's what always happens. Those of us who made input or any of the participants can forward it, then we collate it. I think this is a very robust engagement. Thank you.
I also want to appeal to constituents and other participants to please send me whatever input you have already documented in PowerPoint, Word, please. I like to still have them as part of our repertoire. Madam, I think you can close this program now.
Distinguished participants, we are closing. Because I don't want you to go again, we are closing this validation workshop for MINILS strategic plan. The DG will be here just in a moment. Will join you on the item list. Minister, together with the Director General, can you please come to the other side of the table for the standing applause? The closing. Thank you very much. Once again, distinguished social partners, stakeholders, economical minister, people and members. We have had build day validating MINILS strategic plan for the next 4 years. For the closing remarks, to invite Dr. Bakrisha. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. A number of observations were made that include but not limited to the issue of the activity, the tool adopted, as well as the level of consultation that brought about these drafts. It was appreciated and judged to be appropriate. And the second one, the context of the draft was said to be in conformity with the vision, mission, and knowledge area of the institute. The facility of the institute were described not to be suitable for institutes of the 21st century, and the institute has been inadequately funded as obtainable in some other quarters too. The recommendations that were made include as well a good condition of service that will take care of the welfare, as well as some other things that will make the workforce to be proud working. The aid, the grants, and endowments could be assessed from international organizations, some of which include the PSI, among others, if the program and project of the institute are in line with their interest area to assess fund. The institute's library is also considered as a critical factor in achieving the strategic plan to make it a destination point towards servicing the information need of all stakeholders. The constant mapping of stakeholders' needs so as to develop programs that will directly affect the different categories of the workforce. The new world of works, which includes some issues like climate change, gender mainstreaming, future of work among us, should form part of the modules of the training of the institute so as to attract more patronage. Diversification of fund, that the institute's primary source of funding is grossly insufficient. Therefore, there is a need for a new thinking system so as to attract support from labor movements, some of which are capable to fund in part, as well as a good number of the programs and projects of the institute. The channeling of the IGR towards giving the facilities fees lift, and as well to also increase the IGR by extension. The strategic plan is expected to also drive employees of, it's expected to be driven by the institute's workers. Therefore, their welfare should also be considered in training and capacity building. Also, legislative and policy interventions are required, which the power of the council, the institute, can leverage upon so as to get a number of things done in that direction. Also, the changing government policy should also be considered when reviewing or drawing up work plan towards achieving the strategic plan in view. Also, the massive online open courses can also be developed so as to bridge the gap of distance between the actual and prospective participants of the institute's program, and by so doing it, we give the program of the institute flexibility that is required in this at this time. Also, the work plan of the institute that is expected to explain in detail what the strategic plan is all about should also accompany the strategic plan that is expected to be reviewed either quarterly, bi-monthly, biannually, or as the case may be, so as to test whether the strategic plan and the programs on ground are on course, as well as alliance with the social movement as society organization was also recommended. And the work plan schedule should be prioritized as well. IHELO programs projects, as well as global view, must reflect in the program of the institute, so as for the patronage of the institute as well to be enhanced. Also, there is a need to create platform for stakeholders engagement, platforms like conference and that of the Labor Summit can also be resuscitated. The diversification of program pattern to include the socially excluded work group, particularly in the informal sectors, as well as people living with disability and entrenched gender mainstreaming. Effective follow-up and feedback mechanism for monitoring and evaluation should also be put up. The core value of the institute must be entrenched in the institute and made popular among the employees who are expected to drive the work plan and by extension, the strategic plan of the institute. Inclusive budgetary and recruitment system to give a sense of belonging to all employees, thereby getting the right people through a democratic process into the system. Also, there is a need to strengthen internal resources and internal resources, both human and every other resources, as to entrench internal harmony among staff. Also, the clean energy transition, which is one of the global trend, should be enhanced among the labor force and be considered in the program of the institute. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Before the Honorable Minister for Labor and Employment declare this workshop closed, I don't know if the Director General has one or two things to say. A resounding applause for him.
I'm not really sure what to say after this robust conclusions and recommendations, but let me appreciate all of you once again, especially the planning and research department that has put this program in place. And thank the Honorable Minister, ably represented here by Mr. Ulua, for taking the time to be here and all the critical stakeholders. I've actually been following the other proceedings, again, which shows the level of organization, the idea of mainstreaming. And I was just following you from my office before I went for the opening of this other workshop. And I could see the level of participation. I never knew that Olua could be a powerful facilitator. I saw him moving up and down, and I was wondering, this not so short a man. You don't need to stand up at all because you are so visible enough. I also followed the session where Olariwaju was speaking. I think he virtually gave us a template. Olagunju, I hope you listen on how we can mark the Founders Day. I followed that, where he said we shouldn't just turn it to something ceremonial, but we should give it a content. It's an opportunity to reflect on those SWOT analysis contained in your program, where we are coming from, where we are. And for the first time, this is the first time I'm seeing the visibility of Edwin Anisha. I saw him live. He wasn't not only that, you also redefine visibility, not to you call on participants and popular that they should move around to even know the institute. I was watching you. So please help me appreciate them once again. I think now all we need to do is to walk the talk, and I'm so impressed with the level of inclusivity. Please help me appreciate our people who are physically, or people who live it in disabilities. And Arawi and where is my friend? You are still there? Mr. Anytime I see them, I know there is definitely ability in disabilities. I mean, it takes a lot of commitment to sit down the whole day. And I hope your concerns are also addressed. That's why you have to be here. By the way, we are going to, for this year, I told Mrs. Ajiboye, we have to start now. The International Day for Solidarity with People Living with Disability. December what? December. And I think that's also part of our values, core values, empathy, solidarity, inclusiveness. Let the strong carry the weak along, you know. That's what we must drive as a matter of policy. Involve the women. Women are great. No contrary. Involve the youth. It's about inclusivity. So I think we look at the final draft, and the whole idea when we are out, we can produce to the public. I saw one very good point you raised about the welfare of the staff, of the workforce. And I saw a PowerPoint that we should make our conditions, competitive in line with other agencies. And I think we can't overemphasize that. We always cry when it comes to crude oil and gas. If anytime we talk of resource control, it's all about cocoa, timber, gold, diamond. But the greatest resource is human resource. You can't drive any resource without. So labor is at the heart of it. Labor creates wealth. And we can see the power of human resources. China doesn't have gas and crude oil. We have in abundance, but because we refuse to build capacity for human beings, the crude oil, we couldn't even refine them. China will now come here, take crude oil, they will refine and possibly send to you. In fact, now we produce human resources that are busy stealing the crude. And what you saw in Imo, we can see all just getting wasted. So capacity building is central, and the welfare of workforce is important. So we are bought into that, and I've told you before a few things that we're doing. And God willing, we'll do more. And what we need to do is train the trainers, motivate the workforce, pay them very well. Then you can demand for productivity. But let me also add that one good turn deserves another. And talking of human resource, one of our greatest strengths here, and I hope it's highlighted, is that MINILS are with good human resource. When you look at the level of qualifications, the commitment of the staff. I just left the opening of a program there. And one of the workers, very brutally frank, telling us, I saw it dilapidated. He talked of, and he said he was around before 2014, things were better, which means we have done it before. Although some people also reminded him that things are getting even better now. If you had been around a few years ago, it will have been. But I tried to also task them. In fact, I treated their complaint as case studies for dispute resolution. It's a case study, Mutaka. I hope you go around to manage that. They should go and find out why we have hostel in which possibly water would not be running, and should be, why some doors were not in place, and what should be the approach. And they took to social dialogue. They didn't apply ASU method. They could have gone us right indefinitely. I said, that's one way, let's resolve the issues. And cases, that's fine. But I took them, and I hope I tried to balance it. I said, wait. But one thing, they were consistent, they were full of appreciation for the facilitators. They said you are resourceful, we have good resource fellows. I said, but however, the hostel you talk about, the rooms you talk about, some of them, possibly, from what I've seen, they look better than the offices of people like Tinoye. I know his office. So for Tinoye to see come out of that office and see design program for you, you to appreciate. I think there is ability in disability. But what could have made Tinoye and Co to be committed is commitment, which is the most important thing. But the point I'm raising here is that we address welfare, but we must also address issue of productivity. And Mutaka, Akoyaki, no, I'm serious. Nigerian workers have tried, but there is gap about productivity, punctuality, attitude to work, marking time at work, not marking work. the celebration of idleness. You are not at work, COVID. After COVID, they say we're on strike. So, in there, you will not want to hear it. This one is a proletarian. He can defend workers to the grave, this one. But you know, I'm also a worker. So what I'm saying here is that, honestly, and one of the workers said so today, he said, wait, program's supposed to start by 9. We didn't start until 11. We are just waiting. It's about diligence. It's about commitment. No excuse. Since I've resumed, I made it a matter of right to report here before 8 o'clock. For the past 1 year, I've been doing that. Because it is what we put in. We've lost decades there. To catch up, we need to be diligent. And if you check the record, what built this place, there were those core values. Diligence, commitment, no excuse. Productivity, productivity is not just in quantity, but it's also in quality. Motivation. And then voluntarism. We must prepare to volunteer. We are not typical civil service here. No. This is not directed. Nobody will direct you to do beautiful job that Anisha is doing. Nobody, even I can't even direct him. In fact, he's the one directing me. He's always querying me on this one. If you know the number of queries he has given me. DG, don't do that. In fact, he can even give me warning, and he has a way of doing it. DG, it's time. This thing should not be visibility. Now, if you can do that to DG, why not to your staff, who should come on time? If unions can enforce strike on time, why would they not enforce the rules guiding lateness to work? It's our own. This labor, now your own. Nigeria is your own. And when you look at the scale of productivity, Africa is not on the radar. I'm serious. We are just not productive. That's the point. And labor creates wealth. That's our motto, which means labor generates. So we should be the champion so that we hold people accountable. And let me end up on this. I said so in the morning or yesterday, maybe you didn't think, but I need to ring this bell. And I'm saying so in relation to how does the union fit in? And Utaka, this is of academic value. We can debate it later, not necessarily now. I said so yesterday in the evening when we did iftar. We organized a joint iftar here, but one of my remarks is that we must debate it. My argument is this, and I want to be controverted. I need other alternative views that Buhari remains the only man standing. I'm saying so, the only man standing. It belongs to endangered species, dinosaurs, the last set of leaders of Nigeria that we hold on to something. United Nigeria, I think it's almost dogmatic, even when things are, it talks of indivisibility. Why does this one appeal to us? The only man who can say, in spite of the facts on the ground, I don't know how he boxed himself with that, because he made the point, no subsidy. You get the point I'm raising? It was ideological for him because he couldn't believe, as former petroleum minister, that we can subsidize. When facts came out, he said, no, I'll fix the refineries. He pumped 1.2 billion to Port Harcourt refinery, but the more he pumps, the less. No, I'm serious. But it's the only man even standing to talk of refining, beneficiation. Or for others before, we've left all our faith to Aliko Dangote, individuals will drive them. No, I'm just giving you this view. Now, the other one is that it's the only man standing who, in spite of the numbers, will keep these jobs in public service. The numbers were far more favorable when Obasanjo, Ngozi, Uwela, they were doing rationalization, downsizing. They are the one who outsource everything. They consolidated salaries, including consolidating poverty. When I came here, no single accommodation for me. I was just lucky I'm from Ilori. I have a house at home. Otherwise, I could have been under the bridge operating. No, there's no apartment, nothing for me. And what they pay me cannot get me a room in Kwara Hotel, which is supposed to be one of maybe in Pinnacle. I can go there. No, he did so. Now, why I raise this point is that in February, when they were to lift the restriction on COVID, there was a special Federal Executive Council meeting. The minister told me this, Minister Kiamu. Chief of, what do you call it? Secretary to Federation, Boss Mustafa, he led the discussion. And some ministers back him, say, Your Excellency, we're about to lift this restriction because now we can cope, social distancing, awareness on. Many people have gotten the jibes and cool, so we cannot leave it. But however, Your Excellency, from what we have seen, it is clear that public service has been bloated because we have run the federation with these few workers. So this is the time to do rationalization. And he had some supporters. Then Minister Kiamu told me, he said, you are going to say, Your Excellency, this is a dangerous recipe. We can't compound the labor market with another round of retrenchment. Now, comrade, what I'm saying here is that the new set of the characters coming now to take over from Osibanjo down to Amici, down to Bukola, down to, you know their name, Tambua, consensus, no consensus. Tinubu, I like those ones, they are neoliberal. They want to cut, they want to downsize. They are the one pushing the president to remove a subsidy, downsize. And from every indication, let me also tell you, no president that comes in next year with these numbers, 6 trillion naira, decline in all revenue, crude oil theft, in which you are not even maximizing. They don't even have a choice. They have to manage. I think labor must prepare to be part of the solution, not to be seen as problems. Because the guys coming, they see problem, they see more of us as value subtraction rather than value addition. And honestly speaking, I've seen it here in my 1 year. You know, we are doing frank talk here. There's need for more discipline, productivity. There's a lot to be done. Wait, let's run the numbers. You are in research, Anisha. 40 years of existence. How many have we trained? She don't disclose. How we have known on the radar in your institute. And yet, I did the number, both formal and informal sector. Why is Kamala is not here? The entire workforce is close to 70 million, Mutaka. Organized labor, NSC, TUC, plus minus. NSC, let's put 10, 11, I don't know how many we are now. TUC, additional, let's say about 12 million. Now, the point I'm raising here is that if Michael Imodu has to be on duty to run programs, this place will be massively, we'll be busy all throughout the whole year to touch those lives, to impact productivity, dispute resolution, avoid, all the problems we're having now, even in the education sector, is absence of how to handle collective bargaining process. So people will be asking, and I've seen it when I went for budget defense. Boroso, Senator Boroso, where immediately he said, comrade, you are the one now in Labour Institute. I say, wow, that is good. You always come here to protest. Now you have to manage Labour Institute. Ask me, what is your institute doing about doctors' rights? What is it doing about ASU's rights? And why should we give you money if you can't manage? And disputes are everywhere under this condition. So we must, yes, workers' welfare must be linked to productivity, must also be linked to national agenda. I saw your very good suggestion, ILO programs, but we must also put national programs. There's a new development plan. Those targets have been set. Mutaka, you are an economist and social scientist. How do we link our effort here to add value so that whoever comes to power, anybody that comes, will see us as assets, agents for development, which is the vision of the union, those who set it up for employment generation, for adding value, not just collecting pay without responsibility, without work. We're eager to talk of entitlement rather than responsibility. And it's better we take the language now before the language is used against us. I will leave you on this note to see the way they think. Erufai is my very good friend. Olagunju, it's important to listen to this. Don't be tired. I'm fasting. No, you are not fasting. And it's about commitment. No, I'm serious. I'm not obliged to do this. I met Erufai. He actually invited me for the state summit, which he did. And I said, Your Excellency, you know, I have this responsibility. He says, I know. You are the one in Ilorin now. He said, are you going to leave us here in Canada? I said, no, I'm around. He said, well, it's good that you came for it. I said, but help me, so that we can all build the institute. And one way you can do so, bring your workers for training. He says, I'll stop that. I said, that like I didn't have. In fact, he was sitting down with, I don't know, former emir of Kano. He said, okay, then he told him, he said, can you imagine he started telling me to go and send workers to those people who are fighting me? No, I'm talking of the mindset. Of course, Erufai may not be a typical example, but he represents that were obstacle to reforms. He sacked workers, about 4,000 teachers, now, and those he has recruited. Now, we need to, and he's just vocal. All of them, they're like that. They are also thinking of, they are talking of amending the constitution to downsize exclusive lists. If labor has not started up, they could have removed labor from exclusive. And labor issues, not just wages, not meaning, it includes workers' education, because MINILS is on the exclusive list. If they remove it, which means states can set up their own labor institute. I don't know whether at this point that's for you. Now, what will make us to survive is to make sure that they can't do with this institute. And I know that this institute has come to stay. It must survive. It has to get it done. Then the last one is a Oreseye report. Olaruwaju is not here. You know that Obasanjo has set up the mechanism to rationalize the agencies. I know I was part of the team in labor to make sure we retain MINILS, because there are people who argue the team must return back to ministry. They ask, what are they doing? When I talk of that visibility, when Zainab was saying, the director of budget say, where is MINILS? That tells you the mindset. And nobody that will come in that will not revisit Oreseye report. You see there, it's a constant struggle. But what will make us to stand is what we are doing now. Set the agenda. Let the vision be there. Let's popularize it. Let's show there's a linkage between the money being pumped here. I got your point. Limited funds, but how we justify the funds? We buy equipment, we are not using them. We can also be more efficient. We must, there's enterprise department, we must train more, we must justify where we're. And when you do that, nobody can make us invisible. And with the support of stakeholders, NSC is your own now, we have to own it. NECA is also here, it's our own, you serve on the board. But what we deliver us is to meet those targets. So I'll be happy when we launch the document, we set the target. We all work so that we keep on marking the target. If we say we are training 1,000 workers in a year, let it be so. And that requires aggressive marketing, visibility, research output must come in. We don't have data at all on labor market issues. I know, Lua, you've told me now, there are a lot of funds to fund that project. So with NSC, we can open up research. If you tell me now workers, how many workers are employed? How many have signed collective agreement, minimum wage? I don't know. How many employers are paying? If I told Osibanjo, we met him one day, Your Excellency, we have problem in my institute. He said, which institute? I said, Labor Institute. Which are you? Labor Institute, is it not our own? I said, no, we also research. Which research are you doing? I said, we're on strike. Strike? Research? I said, 67 research agencies have been on strike for the past 2 months. He said, he didn't know. But for him not to know the research from here, That says volume about productivity. But if our research output is out, because MBS, Mutaka, there is still no labor data. The old federal science used to have it. CBN used to have it. None. We don't have. We can fill that vacuum. Now, if the government find you very indispensable, we're adding value in terms of information, nobody can touch us. In fact, they would rather invest more to make this place to be better than the way it is. And our vision remains to make us a renowned center of excellence, a renowned center for global, labor education program. Forward ever, you know, the DG doesn't talk much.
Yes.
Also when I'm fasting.
Yes,
So
sir.
I hope I'm allowed to close the program.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. I now call on the man wearing 3 caps. He is the guest of honor, the special guest, and the honorable minister to formally declare this validation workshop closed. Your Excellency, sir.
If you have directed, I will do so. I won't want to talk much. I said it all. I want to, at this point, declare this workshop open, so you can also go home and work on what we have agreed upon.
Thank you very much, all participants.